Hey, listen to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MP. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Hey!
Welcome back this week, and straight into the fire. We got some drafty stuff to talk about. We got Backlash only a couple weeks away, and quite a stacked NXT as well. So it is going to be a chaos one, and I'm actually going to start on that NXT. Opening match of this week's show had the family facing Pretty Deadly in a trunk match. I think probably the first ever of that stipulation. And Pretty Deadly got themselves nicely written off.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting match. It's basically nothing more than a ambulance match. Just happened to involve a car trunk rather than an ambulance.
Which, to be fair in its own, is also very similar to a casket match. A lot of these matches are just about putting your opponent in something and closing it.
Yeah. I feel like it's probably for the best, because I think Pretty Deadly is needed on the main roster.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they're getting drafted either this week on Raw, on SmackDown, or next week on Raw. But I think they're absolutely coming to the main roster.
Yeah, I think there's been a few people rumored here and there in terms of who we could see up on the main roster after the draft, or as a part of the draft, should I say. And Pretty Deadly is probably one of the loudest names in terms of they seem to keep coming up everywhere. And so, yeah, I see losing to the family in a trunk match and being driven off as a pretty nice send-off for Pretty Deadly. Assuming, as you say, they'll show up tomorrow, tonight, whenever this recording goes up, the SmackDown that happens this week or the Raw that happens the week after. And yeah, the tag titles are cross-brand at the moment. It doesn't really matter where everything ends up.
Of course, that could always change. We saw something that changed everything with the world titles, so we'll talk to about later.
What's that? Is that a segue? Why not? Triple H comes out, he has himself an announcement, and he announces that we have a brand new World Heavyweight Championship. Looks like big gold with the WWE logo slapped on it and some customized side plates. And we're going to have the first ever champion be crowned on May 27th.
Right. Yeah. First off, isn't it nice to have an announcement for a major announcement and it actually be a major announcement? Secondly, I like the update. I know a lot of people hate the logo on it, on the title, the giant WWE logo. But this allows them to take that title and give it to champions like they do the main title.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was the thing that always was like, we can't send the World Championship when it was active. Because while it was synonymous with wrestling, it wasn't synonymous with WWE. It's not, you see that large WWE logo on the World Heavyweight Championship. That says WWE. So having this on it will allow them to send that out as an option rather than just the WWE Championship.
Yeah, it's definitely good for branding, right? Whether it's showing up on talk shows, whether it's being sent off to whoever wins the tennis. I don't know, does tennis have a World Cup? The Tennis World Cup. It's pretty decent for branding. Little bit of confusion, I guess, around championships. Now we have 3 of them. 2 of them are kind of unified because we got a historic 1,000-day reign lining up on one of them. The other is the WWE Championship that's been around for yonks. New title comes in. It's a new version of a title that got merged into the WWE title. Now it's coming back out again. Interesting just to see how it's all played. They will seemingly be defended as 2 championships. The unified WWE Universal Championship and then the World Heavyweight Championship. The
Yeah,
undisputed part's a little weird when there is another champion.
Yeah, they've already made it clear these championships will be for separate brands.
Mm-hmm.
They will be whatever show Roman ends up on. He's taking his 2 titles with him, and will stay there. He's not going to be jumping between them the way the tag titles might, depending on how that works out. But then at Night of Champions, at the end of May, the world champion will be the other show's champion, and will be basically there all the time. So it is one thing though, if this is Cody's payoff for the WrestleMania storyline, it is going to be disappointing a bit.
A little weak sauce.
Yeah, but I still think that this would be a great spot for Seth as well. I think Seth or Cody could be a great first champion. I personally think it needs. I'd like it to be maybe a heel that nobody would expect or something, and have somebody like Seth or a Cody or both, depending on what shows they fall on. Because we as of recording, we don't know anything about what shows they're going to fall on. Could be chasing them. I'd like to see maybe a tournament over the next 4 weeks after we get the draft and everything taken care of, and we get past Backlash, and we officially get to basically what'll be a brand split.
Yeah.
Maybe do like an 8-person tournament between now and then, with the finals being at Night of Champions, and see where we go from there and who's in it. I'd like Finn Balor to be the first champion. I know that didn't work with the Universal Championship because of injury, but I think with his position in the Judgment Day, I think it would work now, and it would be perfectly fine, and it would be somebody that you could have there every week. They're doing their promos and stuff, and you have a Cody Rhodes or a Seth Rollins as a face chasing them all throughout the summer.
Yeah, I agree in that usually the first champion going to be a heel is always the great play, right? Because you just have the faces chase them. It's a story as old as time. I do wonder if having Roman hold the world championships for 2.5 years, maybe we'll see a face champion as a change of scenery. We're going to have to wait and see. I think right now everything is so speculative. Come back to us next week. We probably won't have time with the Backlash preview, but with the draft having happened, we know who's going to be on the brand with the vacant title. We'd probably have a much clearer view of who we think's going to be going for that championship, who's going to be chasing, who could be first champion contenders. And bits and pieces like that. Right now, you'd have a whole roster to pick from. And for all we know, they'll just give it to Brock Lesnar.
Which would be fine, because that would make it not a secondary title. That would make it not... Everybody looks at it right now as a consolatory prize, right? At least that's what I've heard online, is people just dogpiling on it because, well, what's the point with Roman and his 1,000-day reign? But if you did put it on Brock, you know that it's only going to last till SummerSlam. It's not going to last that long. And it could build maybe Seth towards that. And you have Cody going after Roman on the other show eventually. Even if that does end up meaning that Roman Reigns is in the main event of WrestleMania 40. But I really do think... So Brock doesn't make a lot of sense from the point of view of legitimizing the title, but also mark up one more title for vacant and the world's greatest champion of all time, vacant.
It does bring up the big question immediately, though, of what are we doing with the tag titles? Tag titles still currently unified. I don't like that word. Unified to me is like one belt, two of them merging together, but Zayn's and Owens running around with their 4 championships between them. Brand split coming up. Are we going to see them drop half of the titles? Are we going to see them continue to just bounce between brands like the Women's Championship or Women's Tag Team Championship does? Where do we think the Tag Team Championships are going to be heading in the short term?
For all we know, there is a title match on SmackDown. We record before it airs.
That's true.
It could be a double pin, and the two titles get split that way. We don't know anything. Personally, I'd rather have just be drafted to one show, and then voluntarily give up one of the titles for the other show.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe talking in a segment with official Adam Pearce, and then be like, we will take these titles to our new show. You may have these to crown a new champion at Night of Champion for your show, and then be good guy faces.
It definitely would match, for sure. It's not out of the brand of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. So I could definitely see it being something that they do coming up on the draft this coming week. Well, we are roughly halfway through the show, and that means it is entrance theme time. And this week, after we had Carlitos last week, Josh has picked for us Savio Vega. Wonder when people will guess the theme. And you're back for Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and NPR. I'm Grady, he's Josh. You mentioned wanting Finn Balor, potentially, as the World Heavyweight Champion. Well, he's still enthralled with his entire Judgment Day into this LWO feud. And we know for certain Damian Priest versus Bad Bunny is happening. We don't know other combinations of matches just yet.
No, it's very possible it could change. It could, maybe there'll be Dom and Finn versus Ray and Escobar. We don't really know for sure what's going on here. But I think the Bad Bunny Damian Priest match will be pretty good. It is very ironic considering like a year ago they were teammates. So it's and then they had one of the worst matches afterwards. So they went from one of the best matches to one of the worst matches with involving Damian Priest. So it is one of those things that's like, who knows where they're going, how they're going to interlock these two factions in matches. Are we only getting Priest versus Bad Bunny with a bunch of shenanigans and stuff because it's a straight fight with involving the LWO and Judgment Day?
Yeah, it's entirely possible. We don't know with the draft coming up either if all of these factions are going to be on the same brand, if these factions are even going to be held together. Is the draft going to force some of them apart? Is this our last chance to do a Judgment Day LWO collision? We've been playing at the moment almost a triple threat kind of combination situation here with the Bloodline, with Judgment Day and with LWO. They've traded quite a few matches back and forth between different combinations of them. And so I kind of like the little bit of faction warfare that we're getting there. But yeah, we've had most combinations of Judgment Day, LWO, and tag team matches, so I wouldn't really be surprised by any combination we get on Backlash, but Zelina Vega is busy with Rhea, and Bad Bunny's busy with Damian. It does really only leave Dom and Finn. Yeah.
Which I'd be fine with. I mean, it does make a logical sense, because Finn is technically the leader of Judgment Day, and is mostly responsible for the brainwashing of Dom. There's definitely like 50% responsibility. That or 50% is obviously and 99% of the male audience would take that brainwashing in a heartbeat. So, but I think everything also, if that match does happen, it all depends on what they do with Santos Escobar.
Mm-hmm.
I'm honestly surprised that they've kept the LWO thing going this long. So the fact that I've been expecting a betrayal this long and it hasn't happened makes me think at some point in this event it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's possible. I think pretty big merch movers, especially when it comes to Backlash being in Puerto Rico, and with Bad Bunny being involved and stuff as well. We'll have to see. Obviously, Legado del Fantasma worked quite well as a heel group prior to this on NXT. Very easy to fall back to that. If they do turn on Ray or any combination of them sort of fracture off, it's a little bit harder to finish up. But I don't know. If we think back to the core of the story is still Ray versus Dominic. And we got to find ourselves some closure on that one. Or they'll just get drafted off to different brands and we'll ignore that they ever feuded.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many questions that are up in the air because of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
I think because of the draft, we'll also know a lot more of how we're going to predict next week's predictions because of certain situations with who falls where on the in which brands.
Yeah, some characters might need to be that upper mid-card main eventer, so they might need the rub of picking up a win. Some other guys might just be falling in line. There's a lot, as you say, up in the air.
Or which show would end up with a certain title, like, say, I don't know, the United States Championship is in a triple threat match? That just came out of nowhere?
You're doing all my segues today. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit about it. We'll save a lot of it for the prediction show. But yeah, United States title, Bronson Reed, Bobby Lashley, Austin Theory. We knew Bronson and Bobby were going to collide. And, Austin Theory's going to play that perfect middle ground role between the two big meaty men.
Yeah, I think it'll be a fantastic match because all three can technically go pretty well. There'll be periods where it's just the two big men throwing Austin Theory around the ring like he's a ragdoll. Then you'll have the two periods of the two big men throwing each other around the ring. And eventually you'll have Austin Theory just still the win, most likely. But I think it'll be a fantastic match. It makes a lot of sense from the standpoint of the fact that those two were feuding, and they got involved in a title match that involved the champion. So yeah, I'm just expecting a pretty good match.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much where everybody's at, right? It should be a good one. It's not gonna seemingly change the landscape, but as you say, if the draft moves people around and certain people are required to go to other places for position, maybe we do see a title change. We'll be able to look at that a lot closer next week after we know where everybody's heading. Carve out a little bit more time for NXT. They did just have their spring break-in show. 3 matches or 4 matches on here that I want to have a bit of a chat about. But let's just quickly cover Bron Breakker dominating Andre Chase. The Chase U just got stomped. Bron Breakker still looks like an absolute menace.
Yeah, what was to be expected. There wasn't anything that was going to say that anybody from Chase U was going to take down Bron Breakker. I think Dolph Ziggler would have a better chance at winning a title than that happening.
He did.
Yeah. So it is one thing, but they did give Chase some moments to shine briefly before getting absolutely annihilated. And I do like that they are having him use the Steiner Recliner as a submission finisher.
Yeah, I do always like it when characters have different options to finish off a match. It's not always the same one move or the same 2 moves. Having a submission finisher is always cool. Having an impact finisher is always cool. Something off the ropes or, some variations on what you can do. And a submission finisher really works well for a heel Bron Breakker. Who is, just dominating and trying to inflict as much pain as possible. So yeah, love it. I'll just mention it Cora Jade, Lyra Valkyria, good match. Not much to dissect on that one.
No.
There wasn't a huge amount of story.
No, and it's just Cora Jade is likely the next person to face Indy.
Mm-hmm.
And probably will beat her, in all honesty. Because I feel like this is the year of Cora Jade.
Mm-hmm. It does lead us nicely into our main event of Spring Break, and Indy Hartwell successfully defending the title in a triple threat against Tiffany Stratton and Roxanne Perez. Still standing tall.
Yeah. It was it's as I said, it's because Indy is the champion that I think if and when Cora Jade faces her, she'll come out with the title.
Yeah, it's a face champion, so the alignments work well, and she's also not the strongest of champions. Like, even this win here, it was off the back of Stratton landing her move, and she sort of just came in and capitalized and took the win, so it would be a very interesting matchup to put her against Cora.
It's also very possible that Indy Hartwell might have hurt her ankle, and all that speculation we just made is meaningless.
Yeah. And then you just have Cora Jade beat her in 6 seconds next week on NXT, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that NXT women's division has quite a few people who can go. I think NXT as a whole is going to be interesting after the draft. Recently, I've heard whispers of Cora Jade potentially heading up as a part of it. Grayson Waller, Bron Breakker's name is always floating around, pretty deadly. Zoe Stark. There's a lot of options of who you can bring up. We've seen great call-ups during the draft where people have done amazing. We've seen call-ups where people weren't ready and have had to figure it out on the fly, sink or swim.
Apollo Crews.
Yeah, that was exactly who I was referencing. And so, NXT is also hard for us to sit here and try and predict, who's going to be the next challenger for this title, etc., because their storylines could be about to explode next week as well, as some of their top stars head off for greener pastures. Maybe the reason they didn't give the title back to Perez is because she's heading up. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like she's on her way up. I'd say she'd probably be one of the last picks on either show to be taken to one of the shows. I think it'll be fun. It is only like 4 weeks to their next pay-per-view thing. You could still have them working in NXT and get called up, but still have them like Braun, for example, maybe having him face Mello in a rematch, lose, effectively putting over Carmelo, really putting him over, and then going full-time with the main roster.
Yeah, we have seen NXT stars who are main roster bound finish up storylines and do things here or there. It's not as cut as it used to be. So, yeah, there is possibilities if Braun is heading up this week for him to do some stuff before he does.
Yeah, I mean, one of the weirdest things was when Big E was the NXT champion, was a face there, but was a heel bodyguard for Dolph Ziggler on the main roster.
They're separate universes.
Or Seth Rollins. Heel Shield, face on NXT.
They're separate universes until they're not.
Yeah.
We pick and choose what we want. Alrighty, well, we've got only a short time left. Is there a small topic that we've forgotten or that you want to talk about before next week?
I can't think of anything. How about let's give our Intercontinental Champion a few seconds.
Alright. Walter, still looking amazing.
Yep. Gunther versus Xavier Woods was an amazing match. Everything you would hope it to be and some more. I do think it is something to be said that was the first singles title match Xavier Woods has had in his entire WWE career.
I'm not super shocked.
And yet, he's been there long enough that it shouldn't be that.
It should definitely not be. I can agree on that.
And hopefully
for sure.
it won't be the last. I think the run from the King of the Ring tournament to now, especially with a lot of it being that he was the only New Day representative because of various injuries,
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to eventually say, could this guy be a mid-carder? If you can't put him over Gunther, which is fine, that's understandable, because Gunther is insane right now.
Gunther is Gunther, man.
Maybe have him drafted to Raw and the United States Championship. You have him win it in a couple months. It would be perfectly fine.
Why not?
I just really loved this match. I love the individuals involved, and I want to see more solo stuff from Xavier Woods.
All right. Write it down. That is what Josh wants to see. But unfortunately, we are all out of time for this week. So it's been great talking to you.
Bye-bye.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/wrestling R&D Upper, our Twitter page, twitter.com/wrestling R&D Upper, our YouTube page, youtube.com/wrestling R&D Up. And we will see you next week with the draft results and a preview of Backlash.